I am an amphibian and I am here to talk to you about your finances. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bazaar Over Explained, and we're talking about the economy of playing the Bazaar. It's easy to just kind of go through your runs and spend all your money willy-nilly, but it's not easy to always afford the items that you want when you're looking at your shops. And if you've seen some of my runs and how I play, I generally am always having the money, or I'm very close to having all the money that I need when it comes to buying the items that I want. So I want to show you how I do that. First, we're going to start with general strategies, and then we're going to get into all the different characters and wrap up in the end. I highly encourage you to jump around to different points in this video, look at what is going to be most relevant for you, and then I'll try and tailor all that information so that if you're just jumping into it, you'll be all good to go. But let's get into this. So the first 2 points I want to bring up are that you shouldn't sell when you don't have to. So if you get something free from like one of your monster encounters, you don't need to sell that item right away. You can wait for the right opportunity to sell that off and gain a little bit more value. And the second piece here is you don't need to re-roll every single shop. So you can go and spend 2 gold on re-rolled, 4 gold on re-rolled, 6, 8 even, but spending all that money on re-rolls is going to tax your finances, and you may just be spending down to the point where you don't have the money to actually afford what you are wanting to buy to begin with. So I've actually pulled up the Bazaar wiki here, so we can now look at all the different merchants, and there's many merchants in the game. I'll link this down in the description below so you can take a look at this as well. But these are the primary ones that I'm talking about, the ones that are going to be selling you different items. We can look at something like Ayla, who is going to allow you to buy weapons, and we can click over here. So she is going to be selling you primarily weapons. She's also going to be allowing you to re-roll a shop for 2 gold instead of something a little bit more. And I like going to Ayla when I see it because I know that I can realistically look at 6 items and first 3 and then re-roll for 2 gold and see another 3, and that's pretty good value on trying to search for the item that, if it is specifically a weapon that I'm looking for, that I want to see. So also as an evergreen shop, this is one that is kind of higher priority, I would say, in some ways to go to. We can think about Ayla. We can also go back here. We can think about something like Andy, who's also going to be a 2 gold to reroll. JJ can be good middle as well. I get questions and things of that nature like, how do I know which shops to go to? Well, realistically, it's going to depend on what your build is, but I would say from a purely economic standpoint, you're going to, if you don't have a direction, want to go to the shops that you don't have to spend a lot of gold to reroll. There's something on the inverse like Midsworth, who can give you some value back, and I can click on him over here, who says they are going to sell small and large items, and they're going to buy your medium items for 2 value. So Midsworth, I don't like re-rolling because I know that it costs 4 gold to re-roll Midsworth shop, which is a pretty high amount. If I really, really want to get something that I know is not a medium item, sure, this makes sense to me. But realistically, having to always put 4 gold into Midsworth doesn't feel that great. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to maybe click it. If I want to see those specific items, I'm going to probably not re-roll it and accept that I'm only going to see 3 from this shop and then keep moving forward. But I'm also going to be prioritizing Midsworth if I pick up like a medium item from a monster or PvP encounter or PvE encounter rather, that I didn't really want to utilize on my board. Well, saving it for Midsworth and getting +2 value from it, that's kind of like getting money and then getting a free reroll on your shop on top of it. And it's not to say that going to these shops and re-rolling your shops is a bad thing, but you really need to pick and choose the moment that you're going to be doing that, because if you are just spending gold for no reason, and then hey, maybe you're at 16 gold and you know that the item that you want to find is 16 gold, you have to spend 4 gold to reroll that shop. Well, now you're at 12 and trying to buy that item is going to be a lot more awkward for you. So just think about not re-rolling every single shop and saving your money or saving your items that you get for something like a Midsworth where you can sell it off. I think one of the best examples of this, and something where I make a lot of value plays on, is with Barkin. So Barkin over here says that they sell some medium and large items, but they buy your small items at 1 value. So something you can do is like go to your chocolate bar event, get 5 chocolate bars. You don't need to sell them right away. Wait because if you have the opportunity to find bargain, well, it's +5 gold for you. So it's just a little economy play, a little value play that'll help kind of buffer that gap between you getting the items you need and not having to make awkward decisions. Now, moving on to events. So the events are what I would refer to as just like at every single hour in the game, you have those 3 options, and those are your events. They could be merchants, they could be other things that are giving you like temporary buffs and that sort of stuff. And what I would say is, don't be afraid to take specific events just for gold, like going to the docks, something like that, where you're going to get 2 gold in either a tool, a shield, or a weapon item. Don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to just pick up a random item from one of those event encounters as well that says like give you a random small weapon or something of that nature, because even if you don't get something that you want to utilize, well, maybe you weren't really looking for something in your shop to make your board better to begin with. So you're just adding to the value of your bank and you're building up your economy. There's some really key timings in the game where we get to day 6, and that's where we can start to see gold tier items. And generally, gold tier items are going to be way more powerful than your only bronze or only silver tier starting items in the game. This is where you can kind of see a bigger power spike. So we want to make sure that we have enough money for that day. And mind you, your economy is going to ebb and flow. It's going to go back and forth. You're going to save up, spend down, save up, spend down. And you really want to be in that rhythm where when you are saving up, you're pretty strong. When you're spending down, that's when you know you're needing to add power to your board. That's when you're finding the items, aggressively rerolling your shops for that sort of thing. And with the other piece of that, you are going to be avoiding these temporary buffs and prioritizing your financial gains. So to have that ebb and flow of economy, sure, you may need to add like 25 damage to your board or something like that, or get a little bit of shielding to try and say, okay, I'm just a little too underpowered. I need to win this day. But realistically, you don't want to be taking those temporary buffs if you don't have to. If you're in a completely good financial situation, your board is exactly as you want it to be, sure, and you're on day like 12 and you have like 1 or 2 more fights to win, take the buff, who cares? But in the early games, you really want to be avoiding taking these temporary buffs because they're investing in your present, but they're not investing in your future. And if our goal is to get to 10 runs every game, well, or to get to 10 wins every game rather, then you don't need to win every single day to do that. You just need to build up a powerful enough board to accrue 10 wins before your life points or your prestige, whatever it might be, runs out. Another piece to this is thinking about economy plays from events. Mandala turns your trash into treasure. And what I mean by that is you get some items, thinking like even like a catalyst in the game that is worth 0 gold. Well, you can go to Mandala and transform that into something else, and that is going to have, 2, 4, 8, 16 value depending on the rarity of the silver or of the small item that you had. Things of this nature. Mandala also has the ability to kind of take your enchanted items that you don't want to utilize anymore and then transform them into something that you could potentially play on your board. And if you do that, well, you didn't need to spend the money to get the really expensive item that was in front of you. You just re-rolled into it. So what I commonly see a play pattern with this is something like a large item where we have a large silver tier, a large gold tier item that we're not utilizing anymore. Like let's say we're on Vanessa, we got a crow's nest. Well, with that crow's nest, maybe we're not in a 1-weapon build, so we want to re-roll this item, and then we can re-roll that item into another silver tier item that's better for our board. Thinking like even if we can re-roll that into a cove, well, we just turned an item that we weren't going to be utilizing into a gold generator. So thinking about Mandala, there's a lot of value plays that you can make there, and with Mac, it goes even crazier, but I'll get into that in a bit. And then the last point here is take monster fights you can win. So both money and XP are incredibly important in this game. XP is not only going to give you more health, but it's also going to give you more money, because when you level up, you're going to have those 3 different options that you can choose from that are going to allow you to get gold in some way, whether it's through the means of getting like a silver tier item or something of that nature, or if you're taking 2 gold in the loot. The opportunity to level up contributes to your economy in the game. So you want to make sure that you're not losing out on these PvE fights where you thought you could win, you couldn't win. Well, then you're down 5 gold from that fight, you're down the experience, and then you're not going to level up on that day. So you're not going to get the injection of gold that you need to. So thinking about all that, you want to ensure that you're taking the monster fights that you can win. And just jumping to howbazaar.gg here for a second, I do also want to talk about the different monster fights that are in the game. Well, we can say, like, sure, we may want to fight the most powerful monster in every single one of our days because that's going to give us the most gold, but that's not always the case. We can see something like in the later days when we're viewing like the treasure turtle who has a bag of jewels, or they have a temple expedition ticket. Well, maybe you got like the Annex Trooper or Chili Charles, and sure, those are maybe fights that you can beat, but if you need the money when you're going into day 8, specifically if you want to be finding an expedition ticket, well, you might want to take the treasure turtle fight just to replenish your bank, especially with the ebb and flow of economy works in the way that we are saving up on day 5, then we are going to day 6, spending our gold to get our gold tier item. We're going to need to be rebuilding our economy on day 7 if that's our play pattern. So going to treasure turtle or something of this nature, looking at these fights to say what is the highest value item that I can get from them. And that is a really smart way to ensure that you can keep your economy moving forward. And also just noting that, something like fighting the Thug or the Radiant Corsair, you can take a risk and say, okay, maybe I'll win this fight, maybe I won't. But if you don't win that fight, and even if you get, like for the Radiant Corsair, most of the experience and most of the gold, you're not also getting the gold tier medium item or the diamond tier item that's going to contribute back to your economy. So you just want to be smart with your fights. And again, I would use howbazaar.gg. It's a great tool. I'll link it down in the comments below, where you can look at basically what every single monster can give you in terms of rewards. And now I just want to talk about the general tips. These are some of the things that I've mentioned before, but going a little bit more in depth here. That first point, your economy ebbs and flows. You want to save up and spend down. We talked a little bit about that, but again, thinking about how when you are saving up your money, what items are you going to be looking for? How low are you willing to go? I mean, realistically, you could spend all of your money if that's what you really need to do to get the right power level on your board, but you are going to want to then build that back up. If you're in this position where you're constantly spending down, trying to always be searching aggressively, re-rolling your shop, spending 2, 4, 6 gold here and there just to try and find the one item you need, well, you're not going to have the money that you need to buy that item. So you want to take time off where you are saying, okay, today I'm going to spend all my gold down, I'm going to find the item I need. Next day rolls around, okay, I'm trying to rebuild my bank. I'm trying to get my finances back so that on the next day or the day after that, I can aggressively again try and re-roll, find the items that I need. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of ebb and flow. I talked about it before too, but that day 6, it's a key timing. You want to save for your day 6. So when you're going into day 5, yes, if you do find an item that is going to be powerful for your board, you're going to want to take it and things of that nature. But also understand that you could find an even more powerful item on day 6 because of the way that the power spikes with your gold tier items. So it's really important that you have the money to buy them right away and to spend for then you're re-rolling in your shops right away so that you can instantly inject your board with that power level. Especially when we're thinking about higher levels of play, your other opponents are going to be having more powerful boards. They're also going to be doing something similar where on day 6, they're going to be looking for that powerful item. So starting from that point, your fights are going to be a lot harder. So just thinking about that, you want to save up for day 6, and then you're going to want to aggressively, or at least in some manner, try and facilitate finding that powerful item if that's what your build needs. The third point here, speculate when you're ahead and save when you're behind. So what I mean by this is that if you have a ton of money, well, you can start speculating and buying different items in your shops that are going to potentially contribute to more powerful builds. Something I can think about is like a weapons build on Vanessa. Well, yeah, you can play the early game with a weapons spam. You have your shark claws, you have your katanas, you're feeling pretty good, but you also know that that build is going to fall off, and maybe you just get this perfect straight 10-win run. But realistically, what's going to happen is you're going to hit a barrier where, again, probably on day 6 or even day 7, day 8, your opponents are going to be much stronger. They're going to have much more powerful items, and your build is going to start falling off because it's scaling not in the same way as what your opponents are doing. So you realistically want to be speculating and buying items that could go into an even more powerful build than the one that you're currently in. And on the other side of that is save when you're behind. And it goes right into this fourth point here. You don't need to win every PvP fight to get a 10 win. It's okay to spend time building your bank. If you are behind and you are saying that, okay, I'm not winning fights, I have no money, and I don't have an avenue for myself to actually go ahead and buy a more powerful item, well, stop looking at shops. You're going to be wanting to take free items. You're going to be wanting to take gold from your events and things of this nature, so that when you have the opportunity to then have enough money, and we can think about our breakpoints, but you have enough money to go into your shop and buy a more powerful item, then you have the opportunity to do so and it doesn't hurt you. You're not sacrificing even more, like let's say giving up slots on your main board to actually facilitate this. You have money in the bank to get that powerful item and keep going. And we can think about our breakpoints here. Like generally our large items are going to be starting at 6 value. If they are bronze, then they're going to go to 12, 24, and then 48. So gold tier large items are probably where we're going to see a huge power spike in the game, but even more than that, we can think about large items in general. So having 12 gold or having 24 gold is really important when we have the opportunity to find large items. And that could even be from somebody like JJ, where it takes only 2 gold to reroll that shop. Okay, so let's start talking about specific heroes. And what I'm going to do in this section is go through the different items that they have and the value plays that you can make with them, so that when you're in your runs, you can start to look at your shops a little bit differently. So starting with Vanessa, one of the awesome things about Vanessa is that she has access to a lot of really powerful economy items. And we'll look at how Bazaar.gg in a second, where we can actually go and see the different stats of these things and what they're doing for you. But we can see something like a shovel up here, which is going to give you something at the start of each day, a small item, or a fishing rod, which does something similar. We also have nice 2-for-1 plays with something like the chum bucket over here, the chum, where this is going to give you kind of 2 items for the price of 1. So it's kind of free to buy it. And because if you buy this, let's say at bronze tier for 2 gold, it's going to give you piranha, and then it itself is going to be worth 1. The piranha is going to be worth 1, and then it's net neutral. But if you pair that with something like a cove, which increases in value every time that you sell an item, well, then you just made 2 gold off your purchase. Another one here that's pretty interesting is the ambergris, which is going to increase in value every time you buy an aquatic item, and that can also trigger even when you don't buy it, when you collect it for free from something like an event that says give you an item for free, or from a monster encounter, you're going to also be triggering your ambergris. It just counts it when you click it and put it into your stash or onto your board. This item can be a really nice way to bank up gold in your backpack and then kind of sell it off right when you need it to get that big power spike item. You also have some interesting items here like the star chart, which are going to give you not only gold, which is 5 gold, but you're also going to get XP when you go to the docks. So this is going to allow you to kind of incrementally accrue more XP and also gold at the same time, and it can be a nice little infusion, especially if you don't really like the other 2 options that are in front of you for that day's event. But realistically, XP is also super important in the game, so having the ability to get more XP and be ahead of your opponents in XP while also getting more gold, that's really, really powerful and something you want to do. And then there's something like the lockbox, which incentivizes you to win fights. There's also something like a wanted poster that gives you XP for it. But with all this, these are items that this is a type of item that is going to incentivize you for having a powerful board. So you're going to be playing a tempo game. You're going to get ahead, stay ahead, and then you're going to sell off your lockbox when you need to buy the really powerful items that you want in front of you. But let's look a little closer here. So something like the shovel is going to be really important for us, and because at the start of each day you're going to get a small item from any hero. And mind you, you can buy this shovel for 4 gold, where you are buying it at bronze tier, and then after 4 days it's paid for itself, which is again okay. But if we're thinking about where we can sell that item, if we go to Barcon or we go to Volpack, well, they're going to allow you to sell that item for +1 gold. So your shovel can realistically pay for itself after 2 days, and then everything else on top of that is profit. And realistically at that point, if you're also selling the shovel too, well, it pays for itself after 1 day, because let's say it's worth, 4 gold, it's something of that nature. It's going to sell for 2 gold. We sell an item at Volpack, well, instantly net neutral. We could sell our shovel on that item. We've made our money back. But the longer it stays in our backpack, the more it's going to accrue value. And what we can also do is, instead of buying like another copy of the shovel from our shop, we can get our like B1, B2 upgrade, put it on our shovel. That's not an embarrassing thing to do by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of times where you're going to be looking at B1, B2, and you're going to say, oh, I could add like 15 damage to one of my items or something like that, or I could reduce the cooldown by 1 second, but it could be on an item that you don't even want to play. So it makes sometimes even more sense just to put your B1, B2 upgrade on your shovel. And for those who are not familiar with B1, B2, that allows you to upgrade your bronze items into silver tier items. So this can be a really powerful play, and then you're doubling the gold that this thing gave you for the investment of 2 gold beforehand. So it really adds up over time. But another really big one here that I want you to look out for is the Cove. This is one way to generate a tremendous amount of income for Vanessa. Realistically, you don't need to level this up at all. I would say that you want to buy it at bronze tier, you feel bad when you buy it at silver tier, and you don't want to buy it at gold tier. There is this cool point where, yeah, when you sell an item, it's going to gain more value. So it's going to gain 1, 1, 1, 2 value every time you sell an item at the specific tiers. But realistically, you're probably not going to be playing a Cove build where this is like your primary shielder. You're going to want to utilize this more as an item that just banks up extra gold for you. So when we can sell any item, that's a really, really powerful trigger. That means literally everything that we get in the game, whether it's going to be our chocolates, whether it's going to be our candies from the candy machine, things of this nature, all that is going to be +1 gold. So this is a really fun way and a really interesting way to make even more gold off of the opportunities that are in front of you. And let's again take that chocolates example. We have our Cove, we get 5 chocolates. Cool, we have +5 value, but we could also go to Volpack, or we could go to Bargain, sell those off for another 5, and now we're +10. There's a lot of different ways to make good value plays with the Cove, and I would really be looking out highly for this item when you have the opportunity. And just quickly talking about the chum here, I mentioned it before, but again, looking for 2-for-1 items is pretty strong economy in the Bazaar, where, yeah, you can buy it and it's going to be net neutral on the money that you paid for it, but you can find opportunities to take this for free from your shops and then find a way to sell it for more gold later, because you're going to buy this, you're going to get a piranha, and most, if not every hero has access to something like this. So this might look pretty innocuous, but just buy it. Doesn't really matter if you utilize it or not. It is going to have paid for itself as soon as you have bought it. So just look out for this. Okay, next up here is Pygmalein, who I feel like I could write a thesis on just in the amount of economy plays that Pygmalein has on offer to him. But let's talk about some specific item interactions and start there. So I'm situated up here in the right-hand corner, whapping the stonks man with my tail, because there are so many different items here on Pygmalein that can contribute to your economy, and this isn't all of them. This is just a couple of each variety that I have picked out for you guys, and let's get talking about them. Over here, this is going to increase the income that you have at the start of each day, but you can just basically buy and sell this item. You don't have to play this item, you don't have to keep it. There's also something like the boomerang, which you can see over here, which you can put in for your monster fights. It's going to give you a free loot item whenever you defeat a monster, so just another way to add more economy. There's also something like the bootstraps, and this is an interesting one to think about from an economy perspective, because generally speaking, if we're going to be upgrading our items in the Bazaar, we're going to have to spend money to do it, which we're going to be doing passively either way. And the bootstrap says that once you hit a certain threshold of gold, I believe it's 50, then you're going to upgrade an item of a lower rarity. So we can also maneuver our items in a way and buy and sell off that the specific item that we want to upgrade, we could sell off. Let's say it's a bronze tier item and we have silver tier bootstraps. We sell off all of our other bronze tier items. We then buy the prerequisite amount of gold needed to upgrade that item through the bootstraps, and then we got a targeted upgrade for our item where we didn't need to spend the money directly upgrading it. And let's say we also added to our board with the item that we bought from our shop. The bootstraps also triggers from when we use spend gold in any fashion. So whether that's buying chocolates or whether that's going to be re-rolling our shops, there are just a lot of different ways that we're going to be naturally spending gold down. And if that can contribute to the upgrades on our board, well, that's plus economy for us. Now moving forward here, talking about the briefcase, which is another great buy and sell item. If we have something like the money tree, which is down here and we'll talk about in a second, we can buy and sell this off and generate value that way. There's also something like a rewards card where this is going to increase in value every time we go to a shop. And with that, it's something that we can pick up early at like our bronze or silver tier, keep it in our backpack for a while, and then this thing is just banking up value for us for a very low upfront investment. We can also think about items that have start of day triggers like the cash register, which is going to give you gold at the start of your each day. That obviously, start of each day, well, you spend money on the cash register, keep it in your backpack for a while, it's going to pay for itself and give you added value. There's also something like the item like a coin cure that it's going to incentivize you to put it on the battlefield and when you're in your fights, and then it's when you win your fights, it's going to gain more value. We can also look at something like, what is this, the rewards case, showcase? Display case, there you go. But this is going to have a trigger at the start of each fight. It's going to add value to the items to the left and the right of this. And we don't even have to utilize that for the purposes of adding value for like Pygmalien's abilities of wanting to have things to be at a higher value. We can just do that as an economy play to gain gold. So there's different ways to do that. There's also awesome buy and sell items like the hatchet, where we're buying this, we're getting a truffle, so we can basically buy it and make our money back. It's free to buy, free to sell, and then we can even have plus value if we go to the right vendor and sell it at the right time. There's also something that can reward us for winning fights like the premium piggles, which is going to give us a fight or give us a premium piggle when we win a fight. And there's also something that we can look at like the regular piggles that are going to give you a normal piggle. The normal piggles are not worth anything. They're literally worth 0 gold. But again, if we go to something like a bargain, that's where we can sell everything off. Or if we have something like this pawn shop down here that's going to gain value when we sell any item, it's like the cove that we just looked at. Well, if we have piggles and we have our pawn shop, suddenly we're turning 0 value items into +1 value. There's also something like the ledger over here, which is going to do the same thing, where it is going to, at a certain threshold, give the items adjacent to it plus value when we sell off other items. So having, again, generating free items that we may have not had any interest in playing on our board, we can start turning those free items into items that are actually worth something. And then the jeweler's loop here, I would say when you see this, always buy it. It's always going to pay for itself. It gives you +1 or +2 value, depending on its rarity, to all of your items. And that's your items on board. That's also your items that are in your backpack. So we can suddenly turn like our chocolate bars that we can get at bronze tier that are worth nothing into 5 gold. So there's so many ways to generate income with this. Then there's also the money tree that is probably an item you've seen before if you've played Pygmalion. It's something where you are going to passively be scaling it through having coins that you're selling off. It's going to increase in value when you do so. And it's also going to be a nice bank for you that you don't have to necessarily play this item. This could just be a way that you keep it, an item that you keep in your backpack as a way to ultimately have a larger amount of economy in bank so that you can sell it off when you need to find and buy that perfect item for your build. And I talked about the pawn shop there, again, like the cove. It's just going to keep increasing in value, which is really good. And then there's items like the piggy bank that are going to increase passively, and then you can sell it off for even more gold. And again, I'm missing items on here. This is not all of the items that we have on Pygmalion available to us for our economy, but these are kind of the general classes of items that you're going to be looking for. And I was recently asked, for some tips and tricks on how to play Pygmalion, and with that, how to utilize your economy so in an effective way to kind of like keep moving forward. So I'm just going to take you through my first day here as Pygmalion and kind of what I'm going to be looking to do with it. So we see Ayla here. What I'm really looking for is a way to kind of have direction I like to have my first hour be some direction for us to know what build I'm trying to go into, and I'm also going to be trying to set up my economy. So I can see that a Regal Blade here is a decent direction to go into. A Pitchfork is not a bad one either. It incentivizes me to have properties and tools, so now I have a direction. I want to find properties and tools. I will reroll here because getting more weapons for our Regal Blade is not a bad thing. And then I also know on Pygmalion that something like a flail can be very powerful for us, but I realistically don't want to spend all my gold here, but I will buy the flail because the upside can be so good. I'm going to keep moving forward, and this is what I was going to say here. I'm hoping that I can find the jungle ruins or a way to gain more economy. I basically always take the jungle ruins when I can because income is so important on Pygmalion, and the jungle ruins allows you to get +2 income. And hey, this video is not about taking a fight, so I'm going to skip past this. Okay, we won our fight, great. But I also took items that I know are going to be allowing me to win the fight early on no matter what. I went there, I got a skill that's okay. I kind of wanted to get an item here, but now is where things get a little more interesting. I have this 3 gold here. I have an item that I can put on board, but now I have the opportunity to take something for free or go to Quixel. Well, if we talked about the first part of this video, you were there for that, then you know that I don't really like going to Quixel or Midsworth in the early game here because it costs so much to reroll. Especially with how little money that I have from the items that I've taken. I'm not super incentivized to do that because realistically I'd probably have to sell this flail. So I'm just going to go to the tiny furry monster and I'm going to take something for free here, and luckily it was a silver tier 1, so this added +2 to our board. I've leveled up here. I'm going to try and find a skill that is going to contribute to either our income or it's going to contribute to our damage dealing. Our board's not that strong here, but realistically, Keen Eye is a pretty decent way to potentially high roll a fight. And now again, my economy item is set up around this tool here, this pitchfork. So I want to do that. I don't have a lot of money to do that, so I could get something for free here. I'm in a pretty decent spot. Honestly, this is where I normally like taking something again for free. So I'm just going to go to the treasure chest. I get pepper spray. That counts towards my Regal Blade. And then I can make the decision on how I want to play this board. But I'd probably sell this off right here. 20% chance for this to crit, or I could put it there. And my board is not super powerful by any stretch of the imagination. However, I'm set up on a decent economy level and I have pretty good direction. So what I know that I need to do from here is that I need to find an item that is going to buff up damage. That is going to be something that we put on our flail. So I'm looking for lumbors. And I'm also going to want to be looking for properties and tools so that this pitchfork can pay for itself over time. And that's how I play day 1. Also, for those curious, I did just win the day 1 fight. So just jumping back to these items here and kind of having gone through the example of what a day 1 looks like. So I'm setting up not only a board that I think can potentially win, but realistically, I'm 1, looking for direction, 2, I'm looking for economy. And if I can keep doing that through day 1 through 3, that's really kind of the point that'll give me the direction for the rest of my run. Let's say I continue with that Regal Blade and I can commit to it to the way where I'm just constantly trying to level it up so that if that's the case, I know the Regal Blade is going to care about buying weapons, buying apparel. I know that I'm going to want to get items that allow me the money to do that. That's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to be looking on prioritizing day 1 through 3 economy items. But I will say it's easy on Pygmalion to buy too many economy items. If you don't need to get something like the cash register or the coin cure, well, you don't need to invest in it. There's also situations where, like you saw with that pitchfork, I could put the pitchfork in my backpack. I could also have the cash register. And if I'm not actively selling my items and I'm trying to maximize off their value, well, I may be missing out on a little bit of value from those spaces. Like maybe that pitchfork is giving me 4 truffles. My cash register is giving me 2 coins. Well, I have 4 slots for my register. I have 4 slots for my truffles. I have 6 slots total in my backpack. That's perfect. But realistically, I probably don't have space to do anything else on top of that. So you just have to be mindful of how you manage your backpack. And you probably don't need more than like 1 to 2 economy items. If you're getting to the point where you have 3 economy items in your backpack that you're just utilizing only for the purposes of banking up money, you're probably missing out on some sort of value from them or some of the amount of space in it. especially if you're getting to like the 4 economy item territory, you've probably invested a lot of money into making more money in the future, but your board is suffering because of it. So just, it is a really fine balance. And I would say I have a lot of videos where I play Pygmalion, where I show you step by step throughout the entirety of the days how I go about this. So I would check those out if you want to see more in-depth examples on how to kind of thread that needle of your Pygmalion economy. Okay, next up here is Dooley. Everybody loves Dooley. That's a lot of thumbs up for that guy. So Dooley's an interesting character in that you have less ways to be generating income passively compared to the other characters in the game. Maybe outside of Stelle, realistically, Dooley and Stelle probably tied for like the least amount of money generating character that you can have, just because they don't have the items and kind of the playstyle to support it. There are some level up incentives, like, or level up choices that you can have where you gain money for having like a bunch of friends and things of that nature, and that can be a really great boost for the economy for Dooley. But most of what you're going to be doing in terms of getting more value outside of the items that you buy is going to be coming from these like passive item generators. We can think of like the SACOM or schematics, which are going to passively generate an item for you each day. But that is not like a huge opportunity to make a lot of money. You can also look at something like crypto, which is going to kind of randomly have an amount of money that is assigned to it at the start of each hour, and you have to constantly be checking that. But generally speaking, unless it's at gold tier, it's not going to be giving you a ton of money. And Dooley, with that, the challenge that I find with the character is that you kind of want to mix and match and tinker around with different items on your board, but you generally don't have the money to do a lot of that. So Dooley is a lower economy hero or lower economy character, and one where you're going to kind of have to balance saying like, am I really going to utilize the item that's in the shop here? Am I going to buy it just to put in my backpack and hope that I get an item that synergizes with it? Or is it something that I can put on my board immediately and it is going to contribute overall to a more powerful run? I think that this is a common trap that I know that I see with my Dooley play and I've seen in others, is that you have this ability where you aggressively roll down so frequently to try and find the right item for your board, but then you don't have the money to buy the super powerful builds in the late game and fully pivot into those. So you just have to kind of, again, thread the needle here, try and strike that balance and ask yourself that tough question of, is the item in front of me really going to benefit my board, or am I just buying this off the potential for it to do good things and I hope I kind of like high roll and find the right item? If that's the case, then maybe you should reconsider and save up a little bit more gold so that you have the ability to buy like the 2 items that are in front of you that can synergize very well and pivot you into a different build. Just jumping to howbazaar.gg to show you a little bit more in depth, so we can think of something like the Temporal Navigator, which again, at the start of each day, it's going to give you a relic. This is really powerful to think about this distinction between this and like something like our schematics, because it says get a relic from any hero, and this get a relic clause is the part that's really important for that. Relics come in all sizes, so there are small, medium, and large relics, which means that if we're looking at the Temporal Navigator, it could potentially give us a large item and thus give us even more gold than something like a schematics could. Because schematics here says when you level up, get a small tech item. So you're essentially locking the amount of value that you could get from this schematics. And it's going to be based off of the tier that you're at with your schematics. So a silver tier schematics is going to give you silver tier items. But we're also thinking about a temporal navigator. Well, if we can get our temporal navigator to our gold tier, it's going to start producing gold relics. If we get a gold relic that is of a large variety, well, we just made, what is that, 12 gold? Yeah, 12 gold. That's a tremendous amount of value that we generated at the start of our day. Plus 12 income is a lot just for the purposes of having this thing in our backpack and creating 3 spaces with it. So we really want to maximize off of these economy items when we see them, but also knowing that we may not necessarily ever utilize the items that are going to be coming out of them. I'm just pointing out a little bit of a value play here. So the light bulb, it's like that chum in that when you buy this, you get a small tech item along with it. So you can buy and sell this and it's going to be net neutral on its value. And then there's something like scrap metal, which is pretty interesting in that it has basically this quest here, which says that you buy 6 tools or tech items, and then when you sell this, you upgrade your leftmost item. So it's a way to kind of not necessarily cheat on your upgrade, but it's a way to kind of guarantee that. The scrap metal itself might be actually like a loss on your net income because you're buying these 6 tools or tech items, and that may well be over the cost that it would be for just naturally upgrading the item that you want to upgrade. However, having this guaranteed upgrade on that leftmost item means that you are not spending gold re-rolling your shops, aggressively trying to find that upgrade for the item. So this one kind of, again, thread the needle. It's a fine balance here, but you generally want to pick it up just for the fact that cooldown reduction is good, but also upgrading your leftmost item is very, very, very powerful. And one last general tip about Dooley when we're talking about threading that needle is that you are going to want, in my opinion, to find a lane for Dooley and kind of stick with it. And I say that because if you're trying to keep waffling back and forth between builds on Dooley, which, mind you, if you look at my Dooley videos, you're going to see me do a lot of, is that you're not going to have the money to support that. If Dooley inherently doesn't have a ton of ways to keep gaining value and you're playing off a lower amount of gold than you would on other heroes, you don't have that luxury to kind of try different builds in your runs. You're going to want to find a lane, you're going to want to stick to it, and you're going to want to resist that temptation of buying the expensive items for the ability for them to pay out later. It's not going to work out for you. Again, thinking about investing when you're ahead and trying to save when you're behind. Well, if you're on Dooley, realistically, you're probably winning your early game fights, which is pretty good, but you are spending your gold to do that. And if you can reduce that gold reduction or gold spending, you can go then into your day 6, day 7 and beyond, and then start looking for those more powerful large items like a robotics facility, things of this nature, like a bulldozer, that are going to really put your run over the top. So you want to be pretty cagey with how you spend your money early, and then you're going to want to really kind of invest that money into your large item that is going to be your big direction piece in the future. At least that's how I think you should play Dooley. Next up here, I want to talk about Mac, which is a pretty interesting character economy-wise because you don't actually have access to like a ton of money generation. There are some items that do it, but not a ton. But what you do have access to is a lot of like small items that are not worth very much, but have the potential to be very powerful on your board. So instead of trying to kind of maximize off of having the most amount of money, you have the ability to kind of keep re-rolling your items until you find ones that suit your build. So looking at the items that we have on Mac here and the ones that ultimately we can actually generate money off of, we can see something like a calcinator. This is going to give you a chunk of lead at the start of each day, which inherently is worth nothing. But if you transform that chunk of lead, you can gain gold from doing so. You need to have gold going into that day. So generally you need about 3 gold for your calcinator to trigger and give you that chunk of lead. But then your chunk of lead is going to be worth more than that 3 gold that you invested into it. So it's a way to kind of have plus income at the start of each day, which is pretty nice. In its scales, you can build your whole build around it if you really want to, but realistically, you can also just use it as a value generator, which is pretty nice. And then the other one that is going to be generating straight value for you here is going to be the peace rot. So the peace rot works in a way where it is going to be eating items, and then when it eats items, it's going to give you gold based off the rarity of the peace rot, and it'll just keep giving you gold every time that you go to a shop and every time you eat an item. So those are the 2 primary ways where we can see like genuinely this is income, this is gold that we're going to be gaining. However, there are other items in the game that are going to give you like free potions, or they're going to give you free reagents. And we're going to see a lot of items that also give you catalysts. Now, catalysts are interesting in that they allow you to transform an item, your leftmost item, into something random of that could be in that item slot. So if it's a small bronze tier item, you're going to transform your small bronze tier reagent to a random bronze tier small item, things of that nature. So you're getting these free things generally at the start of each day. And from those, you can generate value in the ways that we talked about with like having bargain, where you're selling off your small items for even more value, things of that nature. But you can also then transform them into something that could be very worthwhile onto your board. And we can see this in items like our apothecary. We can also see it with like the alembic over here that's going to give you a catalyst when you buy it. It's going to give you reagents. Why don't we look at everything in howbazaar.gg before I overspeak? So here's the alembic. At the start of each day, get a catalyst and transform the small item to the left of this into a potion. And when you buy this, you get a small reagent. So I had a little bit mixed up. But regardless of that, we can think about this as a little economy item that we can have in our backpack to make kind of like marginal plays. Things that are not going to give us tremendous amount of value, like the peace rot, but they are ways where we could potentially find potions that we want to include onto our board. Or it can be a way to kind of turn zero cost items like a catalyst into a potion, which is worth money. And if we're getting a gold tier catalyst from a gold tier catalyst generating item, like if we had a gold tier aludel, then we're going to be transforming that gold tier catalyst for the purposes of the alembic, if we had this trigger here, into a potion that is worth 6 value back to the shop. So we can find ways to kind of mix and match these. And there are so many ways to create catalysts on Mac from items that you buy, and a lot of ways to get reagents. So like I said, with the Ludel, you can get a catalyst. The Apothecary, you can get a reagent. Athenor is going to give you a catalyst. Atmospheric Sampler is going to give you a small reagent at the start of each day. But I want to be mindful in noting this here. A lot of these triggers are at the start of each day. So you can't have too many of these effects in your backpack. You're kind of limited to that because, well, one, you need the space for it. And having, let's say 3 atmospheric samplers or something of that nature, well, you're going to need to also have space for 3 small reagents. So you need to have pretty good management and know what you're going to be generating at the start of each day. But Mac also has access to some interesting skills here. So if we're looking at Mac skills, we can see this dumpster diving skill, which is specific to Mac. And it says at the start, if each day get a potion. Well, that potion is worth $1 if it's at bronze tier, 2 at silver, and so on and so forth. But with that, if this is a nice way to kind of have passive drip economy. Generally, again, on Mac, we're not going to have this big burst of economy unless it's like our peace rot has just eaten a bunch of things and we've gotten a lot of value off that, and I can pull that item off. But we are going to have kind of, again, that drip economy. And just for the purposes of what I was talking about, here's that peace rot. It says, when you visit a merchant, destroy the item to the left of this. It increases this item's regen by the value of the item you destroyed. And then you're going to get a static 2, 4, 6, 8 amount of gold. So this is kind of like your only burst economy way to do things. They used to have, and this is kind of a big nerf to Mac, they used to actually give you added value for your items that were enchanted. So you used to have this really awesome kind of value engine on Mac where you could take a reagent, you could transform it, and suddenly it was worth like 2 or 4 more gold. But we don't have access to that anymore, but we still have access to just a ton of ways to generate a lot of these free items, and you're probably going to want to invest in some of those free items for sure. But yeah, again, there are so many ways for us to be generating small reagents, small catalysts, things of this nature on Mac, and that's kind of a lot of the bread and butter of what we're going to be doing in terms of our economy. It's very much drip focused. Another item I want to talk about here is the cellar. So with this, we have this item that seems a little innocuous. It is a way where we can reload items and then gain regen for the fight. We also have access to this type of effect here where it says at the start of each day, upgrade a potion of a lower tier and get a catalyst. So we do have access to kind of this upgrading system where instead of spending the money or trying to reroll to specifically get a certain potion, well, we can find that potions upgrade naturally through having the cellar. So just thinking about that, that's one access or one kind of avenue we have for money generation on Mac. It's not direct income, but it is something that we would have wanted to do with our money regardless. And then I do want to bring up kind of what I think is less understood, or it's harder to understand in some ways, of how it directly converts to your economy. But when you have these reagents where it transforms, if you transform it, it will enchant that item with turbo. Specifically, if we're talking about the Cloud Wisp, that is, there's a lot of different reagents. But if we have a reagent and we transform it into an item that we want that also has a very powerful effect, Well, maybe we got the Cloud Wisp at bronze tier or something like that, and we transformed it with a catalyst. Well, we didn't need to spend any extra money or any extra effort trying to enchant that item that we created from this Cloud Wisp. We suddenly have a very powerful item that can maybe even played on our board until the very end of the game when we're in like the turns 12 or 15 area, and we invested very little money to do that. So you're not directly in some ways like generating again a lot of value, but the items that you can create through kind of re-rolling them with your catalysts and your different items that re-roll items to the left of them, things of this nature, that can generate you a tremendous amount of value in the sense that you got something enchanted that's good for your board for a very low cost. So Mac, again, economy is a little bit weird, but because you can keep re-rolling your items and finding powerful ones, you can save a lot of money by doing so. Okay, last up here is Stelle. Stelle is a weird one in that she doesn't have a lot of ways to directly generate more items, but she has a lot of ways to upgrade the items that you already have. So a lot of the value that you're going to be getting is just from the fact that you don't have to re-roll your shops down really aggressively. You're just going to be trying to complete specific objectives within Stelle's quests items to be able to upgrade the items that are already on your board. So thinking about the family of items that we have here, again, not all of the items, but this is frankly most of the items that we can do this on Stelle with. We have something like a toolbox, which is going to be passively generating you tools at the start of each day. We also have something interesting like this orbital polisher. So with our polisher here, if we can make 150 items fly, we can sell this and enchant our leftmost item of a same or lower tier with shiny. So we are basically creating a very powerful enchantment for one of our items by meeting this criteria here. And something that you'll see me do, and even in my latest Stelle video, you'll see me do it, is that I'll commonly try and have some ways to generate flying triggers so that I can go into my monster fights. I'll take the lowest rarity fight, the easiest fight that I can find, and just farm it so that I can generate fly triggers for my orbital polisher. And then thus I didn't have to necessarily upgrade the item that I'm orbital polishing. I just gave it shiny and then it was kind of good to go. It was already very powerful from there. So I didn't have to spend the gold aggressively re-rolling to make that item good, or I didn't have to spend gold aggressively re-rolling to replace items on my board rather in the late game, because I could take something very innocuous like this paper airplane and give it shiny, and now this item is going to be tremendously powerful on my board because it is going to start or stop flying twice at like a 2-second cooldown if it's at diamond tier. That's a really powerful item for Stelle, who has a lot of items that are checking to see items that start flying or stop flying. So with Stelle, we do really want to ensure that we again have the gold that we need to go into day 6 so we can start hunting down gold tier items. But we can really save up a lot of our gold getting to that point because we can build a nice powerful synergy board without having invested in a lot of payoff items, and then use something like our orbital polisher to kind of ensure that the items that we were starting on day 3 with are the items that we also take into day 12. So you just don't need to buy that many items on Stelle for her to have a powerful board. Other items that I want to take a look at here are something like the hammer, which we can start at gold tier, start finding this, which is buy 10 tools, and then when you can sell this, you upgrade your leftmost item. Mind you, again, this may be a point where we are spending way too much money on our hammer to try and get it to upgrade our leftmost item. However, if our leftmost item is like a gold tier large item, well, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost 24 gold to upgrade that thing. So if we can find 10 tools for cheaper than 24 gold, well, we've then upgraded our big gold tier item to our diamond tier for a lower value. That feels pretty good. But additionally, we did not have to re-roll our shops to find that. And again, this re-rolling your shops is where we lose a lot of our money in our runs and we don't even think about it. But if we have the access to go to like 4 shops in a single day, then realistically, we're probably going to like 2 to 3. If we're re-rolling every single one of those shops, we're probably spending somewhere between like 6 to 10 gold to do so. And that's where I say don't reroll all of your shops. And that's kind of one of the powerful things about Stelle, is that you don't really have to. You can find some powerful early game synergy items. You can find 1 payoff or 2 payoff items, and that's all you kind of need to transition yourself to day 6, where then you find gold tier Stelle items. We can find like our dagger wing starting on day 6, hang glider, launch tower, lightning rod, mag shield, radar dome, skyliner, space laser. All of these are starting at gold tier, and that's what I'd say like the generic playstyle of Stelle that I see that works out well is that you pick one of like 3 lanes in your early game builds, which is generally like your molten ball blaster, your aerial turret, or the balloon engine. There you go. You pick one of these builds, and then you basically utilize that to get you to your day 4, 5, or 6. And then once you are at your day 6, you generally have a lot of money to then start spending down and finding your big gold tier payoff that you then transition your build into to support. That's a very common play pattern on Stelle, and one that is pretty consistent and powerful here. So naturally through Stelle, you don't have to find a lot of items to make your other items work. You can kind of just pick a lane, don't reroll down very aggressively, save up your money, then you find your big payoff item, and then you can start spending that gold that you banked up. There's also 2 other items that I want to take a look at here on Stelle, which is the cloche hat. So I believe that's how you pronounce that. But regardless, you're going to reroll your shops. They are going to cost less money to do that. I would just be careful when you're buying this item, because again, if we don't need to be rerolling our shops aggressively down as Stelle, then this item is not always going to make a lot of sense for us, especially if we're like buying it for 8 gold. I think at that point can probably justify and say like, yeah, I'm probably going to make that 8 gold back, or at least 4 gold back, and then sell the hat off itself. Everything after that 5th reroll is upside. But spending like 16 gold on your cloche hat, that might be in the territory if you're not getting your money back, or even like a diamond tier one. By the time that you can find these, are you really going to be having rerolled enough shops for this to matter? Yes, it does reduce for each apparel that you have, but again, are you going to be buying apparel items to just kind of, if you're playing them on your board, great, but if you're just sticking them in your backpack for the purposes of this hat, it's not going to make a lot of sense. The other one here is the drafting table, which says at the start of each day, if you have 3 or more tools, upgrade a lower tier vehicle or drone. So this is another one where we're not gaining direct value from this item by it generating any like item for us to sell, but it's generating value for us in that it is upgrading our lower tier items, so we don't have to spend the money again re-rolling, but we also don't have to spend the money in the item itself to upgrade it. So this can be a pretty powerful one just to keep around. So yeah, two good items to consider, but you just have to think a little bit critically about, 1, do I have the tools needed for this, and am I just buying tools to ensure that this drafting table works? And then 2, for this hat, am I really going to get the value off my rerolls to where this buying this hat is going to have made sense? And that's that. Thanks for watching. I tried to give you kind of like an overview of not only the general strategies that you can utilize for ensuring that your economy is good in the game, but also give you kind of specific examples on each character about how to do that. I would say that if this is maybe kind of only slightly forming in your brain in terms of what you should be doing, but you need like hands-on examples, then I would go back and watch the videos that I have where I go through runs on these different characters, because truly like this economy play and maximizing off economy items is something that I try and do on every single one of the heroes that I play. And I think it's the way that I generally have the most consistent success with getting to 10 wins in my run. I would really highly encourage you, if you're going to look at like one aspect of your gameplay to improve, where if you're really just struggling to kind of improve your game, is look at the economy. Look at the way that you are handling the gold that you are generating in the game, thinking about that ebb and flow of it. Are you always spending down and trying to operate at very little gold to the point where you can't buy these really powerful items that you see in your shops? Or are you saving up your gold and kind of strategically saying, today I save, tomorrow I spend? Just thinking about these plays and how they affect your gameplay, I guarantee you, and hey, I guess, you know, you want to call a lawyer on me, whatever, but I have seen the most success from my own runs by having better gold management, just because I always have the ability, or I'm very close to having the ability, to buy the exact item I need when I see it presented in front of me. So I highly, highly, highly encourage you to look at the way that you manage your economy in the bazaar, and that will genuinely improve the way that you are able to convert that to wins. All that being said, I appreciate you watching here. I'm proud of you. You're a good person. All these things, all positive affirmations and that sort of stuff. But I really enjoyed, kind of taking a deeper dive in talking about an aspect that's overlooked in the bazaar. I think people don't commonly talk about how they manage their gold, but it is a very important part of the game. Regardless, I'm just rambling at this point, but what I love more than rambling is hoping that you have a great rest of your day or evening. Bye-bye.